Do you think the institutions of like the legacy media institutions are gonna survive over the next decade or two? Because we've talked about how like the institutions grew up after the invention of the printing press, and I'm curious as to whether you think there will be like, do you think there's any survivors from this old guard of sort of news giants? Like, do you think they can adapt quick enough, or do you think they maybe just fundamentally don't understand where they're going wrong?
Professionally, Josh, that's probably the thing I struggle with most. How much do I pay attention to trying to fix the incumbents? And that's a very egotistical statement to think that I can fix them, but we try. Or how much do I turn my attention to the disruptors, the new people? I started a program also in entrepreneurial journalism and one in engagement journalism, where I'm trying to get people to, frankly, burn it down and start over. But also a program for executives, where I'm trying to get them to fix the incumbents. And I'm not sure what happens. In the United States, almost all our newspaper chains are now controlled by hedge funds that are not going to invest in media. I just saw a report today about the concentration of media in the UK, and it's, I think, more than 80% in three hands, and they're not very nice hands. Um, and so, what do we do? I don't know, frankly, my most honest answer. I think that newspapers in print will become unsustainable. They're becoming unsustainable, and that's a waste of ego to keep printing them in great measure. I love the Guardian dearly. Its circulation is now down to what, something like 160,000. Why bother? Because there's revenue there. I get it, but I've long told newspapers they have to plan for the day when print is unsustainable, and if they're not a digital enterprise by then, they're dead. So but I think we have to fundamentally change journalism. My engagement journalism program that I started with my colleague Carrie Brown is all about starting not with our stories and our narrative and our view of the world as journalists, but to start by listening to and observing communities. Magazines. My next book, called Magazine, which is a small little series also out of Bloomsbury, to my surprise, turned into an elegy for the form. I started a magazine in the US called Entertainment Weekly, which is now out of print. Still supposedly alive online, but and as I tracked the arc of the history of magazines, there were periods. There was that conversational and curatorial period of Harper's. There was the industrial corporate period of Loose and Time magazine. There was the kind of glossy period of Condé Nast. And I think magazines lost a beat by not seeing themselves first and foremost as communities instead of content factories. And so they could have started Facebook. They could have started AOL, and they didn't. So I think they may lose. And certainly they're going to go out of print. But I think that notion, that culture of the magazine of finding the best and nurturing the best should live on in the internet. We need it to live on in the internet, but we need people who are imaginative enough to rethink the institution around that, or it'll be replaced. TV, linear TV, dying fast before us. Radio in the US has been dead far sooner than the UK because you have nice BBC radio and we have crappy commercial companies. Streaming was going to replace it all, but streaming is not a great business right now. YouTube and so on. So I think those institutions are going to change radically. Now, I again find great hope in the fact that there are communities that and people and creators who have the mechanism to now share with the world that was impossible before. They couldn't make it through the gauntlet of big old media. And is there crap? Of course there's crap. There's tons of crap. It's always been crap. But in that dross, there is silver to be found. I'm going to mention Taylor Lorenz's book again, which is extremely... what the hell's Extremely Online, which I recommend very much. And at the beginning, it's all the things I loved about the internet. It's blogs and the early YouTubers, and I've been a blogger since 2001, and I love all that culture. And then along come all the young people doing amazing things as creators in Instagram and YouTube and now TikTok and so on. And I love the culture and I love the fact that a culture creates itself. It isn't imposed by Anna Wintour at Vogue. Right. And in fashion and in music, the culture now has the chance to be itself. Okay, that's the good news. The bad news is that Taylor's book in the end turns into a business book primarily about how these creators, as they're now called, make money. And they make money because of advertising, and they make money by being as big as possible. And so they are not creating the art for themselves. They're creating it to get as much attention from the audience as possible. The attention economy, mass media started, and from the advertiser. And so one wonders whether everyone becomes media, but being media is fundamentally corrupting. And that when we are motivated by earning a living, and hey, you and I have to earn a living doing things like this, and hallelujah, and we're motivated by trying to get as much attention as possible, and I can do something crazy now that you can put on social media that I did so you can get more audience. What does that do to us and our conversation and our expression and our creativity and our worldview? I think we'll figure it out. I think we'll find ways to get past that control of. By the way, it's not control of technology. It's not control of technology companies. It's control of the business model and who has the money. Now, some would say, well, if capitalism is the root of all evil and just get rid of capitalism, that ain't happening. Good luck with that. So how do we imagine something? So in the last few days, especially after reading Taylor's book, I'm thinking, I mentioned this earlier, I would love someone to come along and create that Harper's of 1850 that says there's a lot of good shit out there, and my job is to help find it for you. And have a dozen and 100 of those come up. So we get to choose between and among those curators and those algorithms and those recommendation systems. We start concentrating on the good stuff, not the bad stuff. That's my hope, but I don't see it sprouting up from the ground yet.
Well, as I copiously take notes about my next business venture here.
Well, please indeed.
Do you think it's possible for do you think that's actually like a viable business model in the digital environment?
I think if we rescale, it can be. If you're going to be dependent upon advertising purely, then in the way it exists now in programmatic advertising, no, because programmatic doesn't care about the environment. It doesn't care about the quality of what it's next to. It cares about the data, about the consumer and their intention, and it can go anywhere. It is quite promiscuous. So editorial environment is completely devalued now, and editorial voice and brand and so on. Subscriptions. Well, all God's children think they deserve subscription money, and it ain't happening. There's not enough to go around. So that's a problem. Membership. I'm very enthralled with the membership model because it means more than just having access to content. It means sharing something together, a movement, an action, taste, interest, whatever, and the desire to support that. But still, there's a scarcity. There's only so much to go around, only so much we're going to contribute to. So I think this is where scale comes back into it. If you're forced to have millions of people because you've got to be the hottest thing on TikTok to get the brand deal, to make the money, we know what that's going to produce. Some interesting, fun things, but some crap too. Whereas if we find the smart sponsor who says, I really do want to be next to quality, and big enough is okay. And no, you're not going to make millions from me, but can you make enough to buy your microphone? Maybe. Can you make enough from contributors and members out there to do that? What's the scale at which that works? That's what I'm starting to trying to think through now, is new definitions of scale.
Hey everyone, thanks for making it right the way to the end of the podcast. I love that you tuned in this long. Do me a favor, hit subscribe, because 80% of you bastards are not subscribing, but you're watching my videos. See you next time.